mentioned to a few students to pop in, so maybe they'll pop in, maybe not. If not, it's just a conversation with these hands. So, Sam, man, I did a post on LinkedIn, okay, to make a brief introduction about yourself. But like, for those that will be listening or are listening, can you make a brief intro of like who you are and a bit of your experience in the esports industry?
Sure. I started in esports maybe 5 years ago, 2021. So I just finished uni. I just finished my master's. So I came out of that in COVID and couldn't get a job. So I was just passing the time away, playing around with some data stuff, and then just posting it on social media and stuff. And then finally got picked up by a team in Valorant. It was my first ever sort of entry into esports, but coming from more of a traditional data background, and like with an interest in like traditional sports, trying to sort of bring that side of things to Valorant, and then sort of that kind of progressed into more of an assistant coach type role, working directly with the team and the head coach. I've had a few stops on a few different teams, and then sort of progressed from coaching, had a career on the side in data, well, as my main career, and then had Valorant on the side, and sort of progressed from sort of coaching to sort of strategic, and then sort of moving into management, and sort of running an organization, a Valorant division of an organization, and then kind of find myself here today.
And in other games that you could choose from, like why Valorant?
It was new. I was playing it at the time. I was interested in it, it was, like I say, it was kind of new. No one really knew what was going on. There was a lot of different sort of game experience coming in. So you had a lot of Overwatch guys, a lot of CS guys, a lot of even Rainbow Six Siege guys, and it was kind of like the Wild West. So anyone could sort of jump in, and I just did. No one was sort of worried about your background because everyone had different backgrounds, and it was a nice mishmash of different stuff.
Yeah, and you mentioned you started like analyzing with data and stuff. Like, when was that? When you were in uni, a specific class, or it was just like on your own time, and
It was on.
then you could, yeah.
It was on my own time. I mean, I did my dissertation was sort of in my master's. I did economics and finance master's, so it was kind of stats heavy. And I did my dissertation on sports focus, so like focusing on football. And so from there, I kind of started trying to apply that to data in Valorant in a similar way to how you sort of see it in sports sort of nowadays, with just basic scatter plots and things like that. And obviously the data in Valorant's got a lot more advanced than it was back then. It was kind of really sort of basic stuff, but no one else was kind of doing it. I mean, there was other people doing it, of course, but there was not a vast majority of people like you see sort of now. And it kind of got the interest of a couple of coaches' eyes who were coming from different backgrounds. And I got my first few trials with a few teams, and then got picked up by one team who were an ambitious sort of smaller organization, but we're trying to sort of break in, and we had like a decent amount of success for sort of the size of the org that we were. And it's I've kind of just stuck around the scene ever since in the background.
Yeah. And what was your role like essential? I mean, I kind of know the answer, but like, why is analyzing data essential?
I mean, I'm going to say something. I think it's a little bit controversial. I don't think it actually is, but I think it was. It's kind of a luxury, I think, for those teams, and that's kind of why my role kind of pivoted to an assistant coach role, because I was hopefully providing some value to the coach in a certain way, but the data side of things was more of a nice to have. I always sort of said, if we can improve the team, my job is just, if we can improve the team like 1 to 5%, that's my job, and I'm not there to make big changes. That's on the coach and the IGL and everyone else playing the game, but I'm there to find the little bits to try and just push us that extra 5% if we can, just and then obviously I started, once I'd sort of got into the game and had a bit more experience with the coaching side of things, I sort of pivoted and still did the data stuff on the side, because I think it is important. I sort of joke when I say it's not important, but I think there is an importance there, but it's not essential, basically.
And what roles did you like have to do like on the coaching side?
A,
besides,
a lot of it was sort of opposition analysis. So I was sort of looking at who we were playing in the next few days and sort of figuring out if there's anything that we can spot from their patterns of play and certain rounds. I remember, I think my first big contribution was I spotted a set round that Fnatic had, and we caught them with it on a map, and we actually won that map, and I think we won the series, which was kind of like my first big welcome moment, and it kind of felt amazing. It doesn't happen very often as an assistant coach. You don't normally find rounds and see them actually happen and it have an effect. So when it does happen, it's a rarity, and it's always rewarding when that happens. But so it was that, and then it was working sort of one-to-one with players on their micro. So we sort of would sit and VOD review their POV and just try and understand if there's different things that they could be doing, or I mean, mostly because of my background being less experienced. I obviously had a lot less experience than these players who had tens of thousands of hours. So it was more to sit and ask why and almost just question what their thought process was. And sometimes making them think about their own thought process would make them realize that, oh, there's actually a better way of doing this, or, okay, yeah, I shouldn't have done that. So that was sort of my style of coaching. I was not going and saying this is wrong. I'm just saying, well, why do you do that? And is that the right thing to think? And then it kind of helped them come to their own conclusions, which is probably more valuable in the long run. And I think I was very lucky that I worked with a lot of really, really talented head coaches who sort of pulled me up. I had a long-standing relationship with a coach who's still coaching, and we were on a couple teams together. And then I had the great experience of working with FPX, which was a little bit more of an indirect role. I was sort of helping from the sides there for their sort of Masters tournament. But that was invaluable. We never spoke directly, but a lot of my analysis that I fed into the team was shown to the IGL Angel, who's now the head coach of Na'Vi, but also obviously a CS legend. And having him sort of tell me what was wrong with my analysis was probably the most valuable thing that I've ever learned in my career. Him to come back and say, no, I don't want to see it like this. I want to see it like this. And then that sort of really helped me for the next teams to put stuff together in a better format and a better way that can be useful.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, what a mentor to have, huh?
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't know that he was my mentor, but he provided me some good advice. That's for sure.
Nice. And like what you've done in esports, and now your job in Syracuse Group, if you want to expand a bit on that, like what are like similarities and what are you doing? Like now that's different, advanced, like I don't know.
I think it's sort of taught me. I mean, I obviously had a lot of data career. 5 years in sort of the private sector, if you want to say. But I think I learned a lot of really interesting stuff working in esports. I mean, first of all, it was my first exposure to working like coding and stuff like that. So I'd obviously not. I didn't study a computer science degree, so I didn't learn any of that stuff. So I came out of that with a knowledge that it existed, and sort of a good understanding of stats to a degree. But working in esports with the Valorant data, I'd never worked with an API before. I'd never sort of coded in Python before, and that was sort of my first starting point. And then I start using those skills in my career now, day to day. So it was really helpful in that, but also, coming into a career, you're obviously quite junior. I mean, I started my first role was a junior data analyst at a company, and you still have to talk to people more senior than you. And I kind of think it's a similar dynamic to me entering esports, being an assistant coach, with not much esports background. I definitely felt like an imposter syndrome at times, and I work with a lot of great guys who never actually made me feel that way. They turned around to me and said, "Look, it's fine. We respect your opinion. We trust you. We're going to listen to you." But internally, I was thinking, why would they listen to what I've got to say? And so I think that taught me to have the confidence that actually I've got something valuable to say. I'll say it, and we've helped the team, so that's good. And you take that to everyday work. I mean, you have to talk to people higher up than you, sort of board level people, to tell them about what the data's doing. You've got to be confident in what you're saying, and it's the same dynamic of, oh, well, why should they listen to me? But actually, I've got something valuable to say, so let's say it. So you can learn some really valuable skills and just just normal stuff like time management and sort of just talking to people, talking to other people. You need to do that if you work in any business. So it's something that you should really pick up, and having that ability to work in a team environment. Sometimes, and especially in like an esports teams, everyone's kind of young. People have different personalities. It's hard to work together sometimes with certain certain individuals. Not that I was lucky that I never had sort of any bad interactions with anyone I worked with, but at times things are difficult. You do some games, you got to have some tough conversations, and it just teaches you to have that respect and that sort of ability to have a tough time, but also come away from it and go, okay, it's fine actually. Especially in esports, obviously you're working from home a lot. Certainly in the tier 2 level where I spent most of my time in esports. You're not sort of in person, so you can just walk away from your computer. But then when we go to LANs, when we have sort of the big tournaments, we're in person, we're on top of each other for 1 or 2 weeks at a time. You friction happens, and that's real, and you have to understand that and be able to continue to work together.
Yeah. Can you find that many of the like, I don't know, like for example, like the team owners or some of the management or the employees, like it was their first business they ran or their first job they had, and maybe that professionality. I don't know if I said that word right, but yeah, like
I know what you mean.
Yeah. Do you think it's that, or
I think that there is an element that some of the orgs, I mean, to be fair, actually all the orgs I worked on were pretty well run, apart from maybe one that shut down for financial reasons. That it was nothing to do with me, but that was a difficult situation in itself. I mean, I've held a general manager position of an org that was not paying the players, and I had to deal with that. From I wanted to look after the players, but trying to get the money off the org, which didn't exist, was something that you don't see every day. And I'm not been in that position before, and you sort of have to manage expectations of the players whilst also wanting to get the money that they are rightly owed. So it's a crazy world. You learn a lot of stuff. You see a lot of stuff, that good and bad. I've seen it all. Working across, in theory, tier 3 to tier 1, I've sort of seen everything. Which is good and bad. At the time, it's not great, but you come away from it and you've had some good experiences. I think as well, like I was lucky to work certainly with an org like Apex, a very, very well run org. When I was there, you sort of see what good structure looks like. I mean, our manager at the time there had come from Team Liquid, so he had worked at a very big org for a long time, and they're obviously very well ran as well. And yeah, you just get a sense of what should be done and then what shouldn't be done. In other orgs that I've worked in, you see some stuff that shouldn't be done, and yeah, it certainly helps you to treat players better, and to like understand the challenges. Because I mean, I'm lucky that I've sort of been on both sides of the org structure, where I was sort of more on the org side. But obviously, coming from the coaching background, I was essentially treated like in the same boat as the players and the coaching staff by the org. So, I've been on both sides. I know what the challenges of both are, and I can hopefully empathize with both sides as a result. But yeah, it's certainly interesting.
Yeah. No, I mean, and as you mentioned, like being in both sides, like what both sides want and how to communicate that benefit, which is one of the most important things. When you know how to communicate a benefit and also the incentives, of both sides. So yeah, and having worked, having something.
No, I think it helps to explain to players sometimes as well, because oftentimes I think players don't understand. They are paid to turn up and play. That's in theory, that's what they think that their role is. I mean, obviously, for some orgs, that is the role. For some orgs that I was on, it was purely just a performance basis. We don't care if the player streams. We don't care about revenue. We just want to perform. We just want to win, and that's fine. And there's other orgs I've been on where it was almost content-based focused, just purely. I mean, obviously, it'd be nice if we did win, but they cared more about the revenue generated from the advertisements and
Yeah.
getting those streaming numbers. And so I think having that ability to try and communicate to the players why it's important and understanding that aspect of the management side of things is also really invaluable, because communicating in a way that they will sort of not just understand, because it's not hard to understand. Players are smart; they're not stupid. But it's more communicating in a way that they will value and that will find most useful and most easy to digest, almost.
Yeah. And what's your opinion on like, and also experience in working on those orgs that are like, like their main goal is their compare results with the orgs that they see that content is money, okay, and having the competitive aspect is engaging, but like where the money is in content. How was
It's
your
tough.
experience?
It's tough because I think my experience on the content side of things was a little bit marred because the org fell apart because a sponsor stopped paying, and then there was no money left, and then there was no money to pay anyone, and the org just sort of disappeared. That we didn't have a clue what was going on. But that was the hardest thing, was because obviously from the players' point of view, they just want to compete, and so streaming for, I don't know how many hours a week it was, I can't remember, but that wasn't appealing to them. They wanted to be just scrimming and playing, which is great to see. As sort of, with my background as a coach, I don't really. I mean, I understood from a perspective of the org that we needed to generate revenue, and that's how we continue to pay the players and get better players and pay more salary and stuff. And that's how we generate more competitive results. But from my point of view, I don't really care. I want us to be winning, and that's kind of was where I was at. And we had a good roster that was close, so maybe without the outside distractions, we might have been able to. I don't know. There's a lot of what ifs, but similarly, my experience on a sort of competitive org was a very unique experience as well, where we almost didn't lose a game. We did not lose a game. We lost one game all year. Well, two actually. We lost one game in the regular season. Didn't really matter, and then we lost the final of the promotion. So like, ultimately, the year was an incredible success in terms of competitive results, but it was not a success because we lost the one game that mattered in terms of the final of the promotion, which was devastating. So it was one of them. It's a really interesting experience. Everyone that day was awful because everyone felt the pressure, and obviously when we lost, no one was mad. I wasn't mad at any of the players. They all tried their best, but like we all knew that the game was up. But after that moment, after we lose that game, don't get promoted to VCT, then we just know that that's it. We're never all working together again. That everyone's going their separate ways. Because all the guys deserved their shot in VCT, and they all got it. So it was what the outcome was what was meant to happen, but it was a shame from our point of view that we'd worked really hard and essentially had nothing to show for it. We had a second place to show for it, and that's. But I mean, for me, I'm very content because it's as part of my story now, sort of thing. So I'm happy with it.
Yeah, I can tell that you're passionate when you talk about it. So yeah, and okay, so having worked in tier 3 to tier 1, okay, and everything, and the various roles, and also like the higher education that you already had. Why MBA in the US?
I think an MBA is always something that was interesting to me. I think it was always something that sort of sat as a possibility for me to do. I think the honest answer was I probably was never going to do it though, and then sort of things lined up in my life, and you just messaged me on Twitter and said, "Oh, do you fancy it?" And I was like, "Yeah, why not? That'd be a really cool experience, but also I will get something out of it. It's not just, I don't want to say the word wasting 2 years, because traveling and stuff is valuable. Even if you take a career break to travel, great. But if you take a career break to get something that's going to hopefully, in theory, progress your career further, why not? And that's kind of the basis of the decision. I mean, it's going to be valuable to sort of what I want to do in the future. It
What is
aligns
that?
well. I don't know, but I don't know, but something you have a background in economics and finance, an MBA makes sense, right? I feel like so. I don't know.
Yeah, and when we're in that process, okay, of having like university offers, and honestly, you're not gonna say because you're very humble, but like the the speed at which you got like an amazing score in the GMAT, like I've never seen it before in my students. So respect for that, And then all the amazing offers, that you got from top academic universities. Like, what made you decide for Syracuse?
Well, it was. I don't know. Honestly, there's no one thing.
Because it
I
wasn't the most affordable offer either,
No,
So
it
like,
wasn't the most financially sort of big offer. I had a
yeah.
couple of better financial offers. But I think it was more. I visited, right? So I took
Yeah.
some time, and I didn't go to visit all of the unis that had an offer with me, but I went to visit a couple, and it was like just a case of walking around the campus, chatting to the staff of the sort of esports division, and also the staff at the business school, at Whitman, at Syracuse, especially. I think it wasn't that the other universities treated me poorly or anything. I just got a different feeling from Syracuse. It wasn't necessarily better, but I think I sort of said to myself, had all the offers been the same financially, where would I want to go? And then that was my answer. It just sort of was a feeling, right? I felt
Mhm.
I felt good about Syracuse, and so yeah, here we are.
Who was the determining factor? Was it Joey or was it Tim?
Both. I mean, both are amazing people. I think both for different reasons, but like both great. So both. I want to say both.
Mhm. And was it the just like the study abroad experience that made you want to study an MBA in Syracuse and not stay in the UK, or was it like starting salaries there, or like the opportunities that Syracuse gives you after? Like, why not stay in the UK doing an MBA, and
I,
why?
I think
Yeah.
it's all of the above. All of the above. I think there's an element of in the US, MBAs probably are looked at more favorably than in the UK. I think it doesn't really matter. I mean, people get them in the UK, and I'm sure they're important and they're good. But I think that the sort of starting salaries in US unis are higher than
Mm.
leaving in the UK with an MBA. But I think it was just the element. It was the element of an experience away. It's something interesting to do for my life for a couple of years or
Yeah.
whatever.
Amazing, amazing. Oh, we have a comment here. Michelle, tell Joey hi. Well, I don't know if Joey is watching us, but I'll tell him hi. But yeah, okay. Sam, and what do you expect from this experience? Because we always have expectations. Or are you just like going with the flow, living the present, and see what happens?
I'm very much a go with the flow guy. I don't expect anything. Well, I no, it's not. It's not. I don't expect anything. I enter with an open mind and see what happens, and just it'll be what you sort of put into it. You'll get out of it. So just go and have a good time and see what happens. Essentially.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna work in the esports program. You're gonna study. You're gonna have a lot of fun. Especially the infrastructure of Syracuse University, the esports program is pretty decent. So
Mm.
like, I'm not worried about the experience that you're gonna have your 2 years there. So I'm pretty excited about you. And before we wrap up, is there anything that you would like to talk about that I haven't?
No, I think it's like I think you've hit the nail on the head though. There, it's a great program, great school. You're going to get a lot out of it, and meet some great people I've already met them, but you can work with some great
Yeah.
people and learn some skills, have some fun.
And any plans or idea of where you would like to end up? Because I know you mentioned a couple of times like still in the sports industry, but did
Yeah,
you
I
have
think
any
there's
idea?
no ideas at all in terms of what I want to do. But I obviously love sports. It's kind of why you fall in love with esports. So yeah, just again, like I say, see what happens.
Okay. Well, Sam, thank you so much for your time, and
Thank
I
you.
hope more students get to see this and at least have a more clear picture of what it can be. Okay, to go study abroad. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Cheers.